I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. Today is January 29th, 2025. I'm joined by one of our usual co-hosts, Western Standard senior Alberta columnist, Cory Morgan.
Great to be back.
Yeah, you're looking tanned.
Yeah, darkened up a little, at least up to you.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're clothed. Nigel Hannaford is going to be away for a little bit. He's off on some other business, but filling in, we have the excellent Western Standard senior and news editor, Dave Naylor.
Feeling very pasty.
You
Pasty
are.
white.
Well, that's an English trait.
That's true.
You're a couple shades whiter than Cory right now. Yeah. Well, we've got a great show. I guess Donald Trump has talked a lot about making Canada the 51st state, and it first seemed like a joke. Then he kept on doing it, and it's gotten a lot more serious. But I've got a theory we're going to talk about. I don't think he actually wants Canada. I think he wants Alberta. And I think there's strategic reasons for that. There's political reasons for it, geopolitical, economic, and military reasons for it. I don't think he's after all of Canada. I think he's after the part of Canada that's actually got the money. So we're going to talk about that. And also just the flurry of activity coming out of the Trump administration in its first week here. Speaking of activity, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has opened the door a crack, or quite a bit now, to weaseling out of his commitment to bring down the Liberals at the first opportunity in a non-confidence vote, regardless of who their leader is. Can he be bought off? Yes. Yes, it can, it seems. And, well, we all know the mass graves from the industrial genocide at Kamloops. Well, that went from reported as a certainty by much of the media in Canada to a theory, to a hoax, to now a downright fraud. New documents that have been uncovered through access to information requests have found that I can't pronounce it. I'll try to pronounce it. But the First Nation responsible, kind of in the area overseeing this, have received $12 million of taxpayers' money to get to the bottom of these mass graves of children. And well, not a dollar seems to have actually spent on getting any evidence. It's gone to consultants, communications, speaking fees, all sorts of things, everything but actually getting a shred of evidence about what's taken place there. So we're going to talk about the Kamloops fraud that is underway right now with taxpayers' money. Before we do that, though, I want to thank our sponsor, New World Precious Metals. This episode of the Pipeline is sponsored by New World Precious Metals, based right here in Alberta. Years of inflationary money printing and rising debt have decimated the average Canadian savings. Gold and silver are the only currencies that have held their value for thousands of years. Last year saw 30% gains. New World Precious Metals offers unique platforms to help protect and grow your hard-earned wealth with gold and silver. Check them out at newworldpm.com. Again, you can find New World Precious Metals at newworldpm.com. Okay, so I think it's been 2 out of every 3 weeks on the pipeline since pretty soon after Trump was reelected in November. We've been talking about his jokings, then musings, then threats about annexing Canada as the 51st state. Now, the term 51st state I always thought was a bit funny because there's no way Canada would be a single state. It's bigger than the rest of the United States combined. It would obviously be more than one state, but that's neither here nor there. But it actually turns out, in my thinking, maybe it is one state, but it's not Canada as the 51st state. If the United States took in the whole of Canada, it would massively upset the electoral balance, the balance of power between the Democrats and the Republicans. That's why Puerto Rico doesn't get to come in as a state, because it would create a permanent Democratic, at least, advantage in the Senate with another 2 blue senators. If you took in Canada with ostensibly, I don't know, between 7 and 10 new states, the Democrats would rule for the very foreseeable future in the United States, because most Canadian states, I mean, that's a weird thing to say, most Canadian states would probably elect Democratic senators. It would upset the Electoral College significantly. But I don't think Trump actually really wants all of Canada. I'm getting the idea that he's making a play for Alberta. And I know it sounds crazy. The whole topic is crazy. I have to pinch myself every time I'm talking about it. But this is a real topic. And he's got some kind of play. We don't know exactly what it is. But I'm coming around to the theory that he wants Alberta. He gets the second to third, depending on how you measure it, the second to third largest proven oil reserve on the planet. The single largest private oil reserve on the planet. You'd get... we would be amongst the wealthiest of states, whereas most Canadian provinces would significantly lower the average GDP of the United States and would require significant equalization, for lack of a better term, for a significant time before they're brought up to the more closer to the American average. Alberta would actually increase the American average GDP per capita. And, if you did take Alberta, it would probably fatally weaken Canada economically, politically, and geographically, so that he could take the rest of Canada thereafter. Canada can't survive without Alberta's money being pilfered from it every year. I can see a circumstance here where he's going to impose his tariffs in a few days from now, and Ottawa, as we've discussed before, would impose an exit tax on Alberta oil or something, triggering a national unity crisis. At which time Trump could come to Alberta and make a deal that's a lot better than anything the rest of Canada could offer. Dollar for dollar exchange rate for our Canadian pesos, unlimited market access to Alberta oil, total end of all equalization payments, probably money flowing actually into Alberta for once on a net basis, which we've never had in the modern history of Alberta. And he could try to drive a wedge between Canada and Alberta with a better deal on the table. Start with you, Dave. It's crazy talk, but
Yeah.
I think it's talk that has to be taken seriously now.
No, not necessarily. I think it's crazy talk. What did Doug Ford's hat say? Not for sale.
Although it was made in China.
Made in China. Yeah, he can bluster all he wants. He can bluster about taking over Panama. He can bluster about taking over Greenland. But that's all it is, I think, is just bluster. You do make some interesting arguments. I just don't see it happening. Maybe I'm got my head in the sand. But every politician has said Canada's not for sale. It's the art of the deal with Trump, right? This is his opening gambit. If you don't do what I do, I'm going to buy you, or you can come and join me. So. I just don't see it happening.
Well, Cory, it's Canada. Maybe it isn't for sale. Maybe Alberta is. Doug Ford says it's not for sale, but no offer has been made yet. Alberta perennially gets a horrendous deal out of Confederation, and Alberta's best chance, Pierre Poilievre, said just days ago he's not changing equalization, and he can't politically, because to become prime minister, he needs the votes in the east. He needs them in Ontario. He needs them in equalization. Isn't a huge deal in Ontario, but it's a huge deal in Quebec, and it's a massive deal in the Atlantic provinces. He can't become prime minister if he is willing to change it. So even our best hope, it only gets marginally. It does get a bit better, but it doesn't get a lot better. And who knows what happens? Maybe the Liberals, in a circumstance where the Liberals actually managed to pull this out. They've had some polls are showing they've had a bump in it. Main Street and Ecos, I'm more hesitant to believe. But Main Street, Main Street is not seen as a wildly partisan pollster, Keto Maggie. Let's say the Liberals and then the NDP managed to pull something out with a refreshed leader, and Canadians buy it for a little bit. And they want to use Alberta's oil as the human shield, human economic shield against Trump. We'd be faced with devastating economic consequences to prop up parts of the country that have done us no favors over the last decades. is that the time when Trump makes us, Alberta, a deal? Not Canada, but Alberta.
I could see him making an offer to shake things up. I just don't see the will being there among Albertans and Americans. I mean, it's Trump's got the will, that's fine, but he's like a kid with a couple of bugs in a bottle. He just likes shaking it up and watching them all fight. And there might be deeper motivations in trying, when you've got a disrupted country and you're trying to bring about new trade deals and things, if they're busy scrambling, fighting with each other, you can really get some good progress made. I think, again, in theory, would he like Alberta as a little carve out as a part of the States and be the man who brought it in? Sure. I mean, economically, it makes fantastic sense. As close as anywhere in Canada, you're going to find people as politically minded as Americans, much less Republicans. It's Alberta. But I mean, those discussions have happened a lot.
Albertans have not really ever seriously debated joining the United States.
I'm just speaking among the independent set. So, I mean, I did a lot of those speaking things with the groups, when I was selling books and things like that. One of the guests who was always speaking, he started the same way. He would actually do a straw poll in the room and say, well, we're here looking at independence. What are your visions of it? Just a stronger place within Confederation, full independence. And he would also, at the end, have, we're joining the United States. We're talking 2% in an independence-minded room.
I'd say 6 months ago, 100%. And 2% even among the independence crowd. But we're in a different world than 2 months ago.
That's probably grown. So in an independence-minded room, you might be at 20%. But among Albertans in general, we're still looking at 5 or 10. Nowhere near a tipping point where we're looking at least at a
actually
exodus.
The poll taken roughly a month ago had it about 20-25% in Alberta.
Oh, I understand.
And if you poll among younger people, I haven't seen it broken down just for Alberta, but on younger people across all of Canada, it's 40%.
Oh, and
40% because in large measure, and we've talked about this previous episodes, it's because Trudeau, his father, and others, but the whole constellation of the Laurentian and liberal elites here have done everything they can to destroy any attachment to Canada. Canada, at this point, in their own, it's post-national. It is a merely economic and political transaction. And as an economic and political transaction, it's not good for Alberta by any measure.
Oh, no, there's no good case to be
so
made.
If someone offers a better transaction,
it's growing. It's got to get a heck of a lot worse, I think, before people are ready to make that leap. That's my feeling on it. I mean, participating in a couple of elections too, where the polling, when someone says, would you consider independence, or if you had it with Confederation, you can find some great numbers. When it actually comes to the voting booth, hey, we got an independence candidate. Yeah, they would. Yeah, I was just saying, the world's in a crazy place. Hey, I am not opposed to the concept of Alberta independence, and I'm no friend of the Federation as it sits. Mm-hmm. But I just think with what Trump's doing, it's bringing about more of those feelings. It's destabilizing. As you said, Trudeau has really undercut any feelings of patriotism. I just think we got a ways to go before it's a realistic thing that may happen.
We need to get the sense of pride back in this country, which has been decimated by, Trudeau taking Terry Fox off the passports and Vimy Ridge and trying to erase any sense of Canadian history, and John A. Macdonald statues being tipped and covered in red. We need Poilievre to get in there and let's fall in love with this country again. Let's get Terry Fox on the $5 bill. Let's get some Canadian pride going again. Because when we do have that, we're a pretty damn good place to live.
Well, pride aside, though, I mean, that's the thing. If Poilievre doesn't correct some of these things to the West, because that's something I've always said. The permanent.
He said he's not going to.
The permanent independence movements, or people who adhere to it, come to it when conservatives screw them, not when liberals do. You expect the liberals to screw you. It's when Mulroney waited an extra year and a half before getting rid of the National Energy Program when he came in. It's when he canceled or gave the contracts to Quebec over Winnipeg for aerospace things. And if Poilievre doesn't do a bloody thing about things like equalization, the misbalance of power and things like that, which he probably won't, that's when you see the slow burn that'll grow. I mean, I see more of that bringing it about, though, than what Trump is doing right now.
Well, I generally agree. It happens when, because we all, Albertans, Westerners, pin their hopes on the Conservatives, normally falsely. The Conservatives make it a bit better, but they don't.
They're less bad.
They're less bad. They screw us less than the other guys. And I think that would be the case with Poilievre. I still think Poilievre is very likely to win the next election, but there are signs of life that maybe a new coat of paint on the Liberals with the new leader. Who knows what they do out east? Maybe it was just Trudeau and not necessarily just the Liberals and liberalism they were sick of. If these guys were somehow to hang on to power,
We're going to see some different views of it.
If those guys manage to hang on to power, I think that changes the calculus.
Oh, the fury would be unbelievable. And, we're going to talk a bit about that. With some of what they're doing to try and cling is going to be infuriating. I mean, losing faith in the system. You don't feel represented.
No, exactly.
Dave, you wanted to just talk about some of the flurry of actions going on in the United States. Trump's first week and a bit in power have been dizzying. I've never seen anything like it.
Oh no, it's absolutely crazy. And for me, the best stuff right now is the socialist president of Colombia, still in the fetal position underneath his desk, refused to accept a plane load of deportees from Trump. So Trump, and keep in mind, he's playing golf. So from his golf cart, orders, all right, immediate 25% tariffs, immediate, visa requirements, extended surges of luggage, and revoking of all visas.
Freeze their assets.
Yeah. And then obviously the president of Colombia capitulated and took his murderers and rapists back. And you got the start of the ICE raids. Yesterday, I think they rounded up 969 people to be deported. Still a long way. They got a long way to go to get to the million mark that Trump has.
They need several million.
Trump has promised. Looks like they're doing it city by city. It started in Chicago, then New York City. Today was supposed to be Aurora, Colorado. I don't know why they're telling people in advance. But it's funny, you see some of the footage from normally bustling like Costco outlets in the States. They're just empty because nobody's going there because they're all afraid of being picked up and put on the deportation bus. He's banned sexual sex change operations on children. That's banned as of yesterday. He's fired everybody, basically. He's canned DEI. It's just, it's a whirlwind. It's just breathtaking. I've never seen anything. He has literally done more in a week than Biden did in 4 years, and he's enjoying himself. He gets out on the hustings and he's laughing and cracking jokes, and he's like a stand-up comedian. It's great.
Actually, I think we also need to make a small shout out to some of the influence the war on DEI has had right here in Alberta. Actually, the Alberta government laid off 18, I think, 19 DEI. I would like to say do nothing. Unfortunately, they do something, and it's extremely destructive. 19 DEI employees in the Alberta government. I think there's a lot more I think that needs to be done there, but they just let them go. Those are people who I am glad to see out of work. Often, if you're just a run-of-the-mill government bureaucrat, I don't have anything necessarily against you. You're just pushing paper, doing your job, even if it's a useless job. But that's an actively destructive job. I'm happy to see those people out on the street.
Yeah, last night Trump offered buyouts to 2 million federal workers. Said he would save
That's awesome.
$100 billion. So yeah, if you're a Democrat and you're not a fan of Trump, then don't be a hypocrite. Take the buyout.
And it's interesting. I mean, that's something I've really been watching closely. That DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and with Elon Musk being tasked to take this on, because this is what developed nations are suffering under. I mean, decades and decades of just bureaucratic bloat, and they need to cut it without hesitation. And it's showing planning too, though. It's okay. We're not just going to come in with a knife and lay off 2 million people, but we're giving them an out. If you're relatively young, you're 40. Here's 8 to 12 months of severance, basically, so you can find your way into a new career. Here's your choice, though. You can choose that now or hang on, but you might not make it through the cuts that are probably going to come.
You might not get as good a deal.
So it's showing a harsh cut, but it's still not throwing them on the streets, and it's giving them a choice, and it's giving them an option. And if you cut that many out, you can bet the ones that might have been just kind of coasting and mailing it in are suddenly going to find a work ethic. They're suddenly going to realize, okay, we got 6 people in this office. I know 2 are going to disappear. I want to shine a little bit. So I like where he's going, and I hope it inspires Canada.
Oh, we so need that here, don't we?
Oh, yeah. My show monologue reflects that.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. We saw the pre-war in Argentina with Milei. Is that how you say it?
Milei, yeah.
Milei,
I think. I could be.
I just call him the guy with the hair.
It's just a Wolverine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what a turnaround in Argentina. The it's been a basket case for generations, roaring back to
How
life.
quickly is amazing.
Yeah. What we're seeing in the United States, I hope to God it's going to trigger something here. And not just in Ottawa that's being run by the Liberals, when Poilievre likely comes in, but even here in Alberta. Our Conservatives here in Alberta, they've been great on a lot of fronts, but they have been terrible at controlling the size of government, the number of bureaucrats, how much we're spending. We're blowing yet again, of course, another oil. It's not a total boom, but we're blowing pretty good times right now. We're not saving. We're not paying down debt nearly as much as we should. I think Danielle Smith, her finance minister, Nate Horner, these guys have got to get the message here. Look what's going on in Argentina. Look what's going on in the United States. It's time to, put the scalpel away. Let's pull out the axe. Let's bludgeon the government to death.
Or it's a chainsaw that Milei or whatever uses. You know, and what is it? A fuego. He says, like fire.
A fuego. Yeah, no, it's what's his slogan? I know in English it translates as "Long live freedom." Damn it.
Yeah.
God, we need some of that here. Okay. Well, we're going to turn to here now. So speaking of things just continuing on in Ottawa, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, loves to talk tough. In the fall when it became clear the NDP was suffering badly in the polls because it was too closely attached to Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, says, "I'm ripping up the agreement." He said it like 24 times. It felt like in his press conference, like it was just sad. And, then you ask the question, so you're going to vote against the government? Well, as you know, I've ripped up the agreement. Okay, well, you ripped up the agreement. Does that mean you're going to vote against them now? Well, I told you I've ripped it up. And he had to get cornered and cornered. It was went on for months, and eventually Trudeau resigns, and he says, yes, we ripped it up. And that means, as I've said the whole time, we're going to vote to bring down the government, trigger an election, no matter who the next Liberal leader is. First, as soon as Parliament's back from being prorogued, we're bringing it down, we're having an election. Well, life finds a way. Let's play this clip from Jagmeet Singh asked the question about just this. If there's a way for him and the NDP to be bought off to support keeping the Liberals in power a little longer.
Think about the analysis that's out there. If those Trump tariffs come in place, there are hundreds and thousands of Canadian jobs at risk. Think about what that means for those workers, hundreds of thousands of workers, for their families, for those communities. This could be devastating for our country. So we do need to have a plan in place to support those that are impacted, those businesses, those workers, most importantly. I have not had any conversations with other opposition leaders. I think we need to come together to have a discussion about what is the best way forward. I've not had any discussions with the government related to this. If there is any desire to move forward, the government should call us together, like we did during COVID, and discuss a plan that supports workers.
Okay, so where there's a will to cling to power, there's a way. The NDP still don't have the money for an election. They would have to borrow for this one, as they did in the last one. They finally just paid off the debt from the last election. They don't have a war chest to go into a new campaign. They're pretty weak in the polls. Normally when the Liberals collapse, 2/3 of the vote goes to the Conservatives, 1/3 goes to the Liberals. It's just all gone to the Conservatives. The NDP have not picked up anything because the Conservatives are so strong. The NDP stands to actually potentially lose several seats to the Conservatives. They're afraid of an election. Everybody knows Canada needs an election. This country needs an enema. We need to clear out our system. We need to get healthy to be able to have any fighting chance whatsoever in dealing with Trump. Like him or not, he's acting like a madman, and the example of Colombia is anything. Doug Ford can put on whatever hat he wants. He can, Doug Ford broke his own election laws, calls an early election because he's going to send a message to Donald Trump. Donald Trump isn't even going to know there was an election in Ontario. It doesn't matter if Doug Ford wins 0 seats or all the seats in the Ontario legislature or provincial parliament, as they say. This country is just pretty hopelessly screwed right now unless we have a federal election with a government with some kind of legitimate democratic mandate to represent the country. Jagmeet Singh, though, open to being bought off with just more free money to go around. It's all free money. I'm sure it's a big coincidence that the Ontario election is being called right now just as those checks are landing in Ontarians' mailboxes, 200 Ford bucks. Ontarians getting free money from the government for, I forget what their official reasoning is, but it's obviously they may as well actually just use the checks all Ontarians are getting, just turn it over, and that's your ballot. Fill out your candidate on the other side of the check you got from Doug Ford. Jagmeet Singh, I think, wants something similar. The feds are talking about another COVID-style mass money give out. Remember the disaster that was CERB? We spent tens of billions of dollars. Fraud was rife. Many people who legitimately should have got it were actually ended up denied and ended up having to pay it back. It just looks like another free money giveaway that the Liberals and NDP will want to hang on to try and maybe up their popularity. I don't think it's going to work. You had Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau's big money giveaway and the GST debacle in the lead up to Christmas that actually didn't end up happening in the end. That didn't move their popularity. It's just another gimmick. But it looks like Jagmeet Singh is going to be willing to, at least quite possibly, keep the Liberals in power for, I don't know, a few more months, maybe all the way to October, in exchange for some free checks and in the prayer to the election gods that this is going to turn their popularity around, Cory.
Yeah, it's pure desperation. As you said, the NDP is hooped. They can't gain any traction. The Liberals are falling, the NDP's falling along with them. Ironically, in pure foolishness, politically, hitching your wagon to the sinking ship even more tightly isn't going to save them, but it's going to buy them time. And that's all they're doing is they're treading water, praying, and he'll cut whatever deal he has to stay in. But this is scary on a couple fronts, on a few. I mean, Canadians are furious. They're ready for an election. They've signaled, and usually with polls in Canada, you always see that Canadians want an election. 90% of the time, no, they never want an election. They never want. Now, this last year, they've wanted an election. And as we see people like Singh and Trudeau twisting the mechanisms, using it to drag this out when we have a lame duck prime minister dealing with a threat south of the border like we've never dealt with before, it's brutal. I mean, so it's undermining faith in the country. Plus, the offer, he's cut a deal. I mean, it's an offer. The bottom line is he wants, and that's what, as Trudeau framed it, a spending program the size of the COVID response, the size of CERB. It wasn't that long ago we had hyperinflation going on. Maybe not hyperinflation, but it was strong. And every country that tried to spend their way out of COVID dealt with years of inflation afterwards. That's simple economics. And now if these clowns go spending tens of billions of dollars, basically saying, don't worry about the trade war, we can live on the credit cards, we're in deep trouble. We're already in deep trouble, and it's going to get worse.
Actually, before I know, go ahead.
So before we came in here, I took a look at the Western Standard Jagmeet Singh pension countdown clock, and we're down to 26 days. Just so you know, Derek, you don't know this, but the Tories did the same thing today too. They launched a Jagmeet Singh pension countdown clock.
Oh, I'm glad we could inspire them.
Exactly. So he's just cementing his place in history as the most hypocritical Canadian politician ever, and he'll go down as one of the most hated ever if he continues down this path.
So I want to put this up on the screen here. I want to read from. I'll give it to the studio here. A tweet from Tristan Hopper. He's a National Post journalist based in Victoria. I think he's one of the funniest guys on Twitter. And he put this well, responding to the video that we just played of Jagmeet Singh trying to weasel out from his declaration that he's ripped up the agreement. Says, what would be nice? Actual third world corruption instead of whatever this is. I'd much prefer a system where Jagmeet Singh props up the new Liberal government because they gave him a new car instead of another multi-billion-dollar handout that accomplishes nothing. I mean, it'd be cheaper. I mean, let's just bring the corruption and deal-making right in. Just do it old school. Give him another shiny watch. Give him another Maserati or up his pension. I mean, I actually don't. I think we need to actually get rid of. I know this is going to sound bad because no one likes MP pensions. We should not make them wait 6 years to be able to qualify for it. They should just qualify for it on the first day. Because as nasty as that pension can be, this is, having them make decisions that affect the whole country so they can get their pension is much worse and more destructive on the large scale. We should just give them their damn pension on the first friggin' day And it gets bigger the longer they're there, but they shouldn't have to wait 6 years to vest for it. Bring the corruption into the open. Let's just do it third world style. You know, when I travel to a nice sunny country, I admire how openly corrupt everyone is. They want money.
You know where to
for
bribe
everyone.
and what you got to
Yeah, you don't have to think about it. No, you got to pay this guy off to get that. It's right in the open. There's no dancing around and unsaid things. It's just done. It's done in the open. And I think Canada needs that. Let's make Canada full third world corrupt.
We're going to get a full third world economy pretty soon. So
We could be on our way there.
I mean, you look at what's going on in there too, in the desperation. I mean, it's clear that they're working towards a coronation for Carney. And what's the vision, though? That he's going to be in, he's going to sit for 2 weeks and then be thrown into an election. It's going to be a catastrophe. They want to buy time as desperately or more so than Singh. Carney wants time. He would love to have 3, 4, 5 months to start campaigning, establishing himself, building his team, whoever's going to be running for election. He needs all of that. And he'll only have 2 weeks to do it otherwise. So they will offer Singh virtually anything to stay in there.
Mhm.
And yeah, you know, this proposal of a bailout the size of COVID for tariffs that haven't even come in yet. You know what? If the tariffs don't come in, they're going to cut some other deal with them. You can count on it.
All right. Well, let's turn it even closer to home here. Kamloops. So, you know, we recall, what was it? What year did Kamloops blow up?
20 or was it 2021? It was shortly
I
into
think
COVID.
2021.
Shortly into
21,
COVID, yeah. Okay.
Around 2021. This blew up into the headlines. I mean, there was something, and that something probably deserved to be a news story, but it got really quickly blown up into mass graves of children found at this former residential school in Kamloops. Most of the legacy media reported it that way, and then the international press picked it up that way. Our own government declared us a genocidal state. Next thing you know, we're living in the frozen Fourth Reich. And, money was put, a lot of money from taxpayers was put towards getting to the truth of this. And I was actually okay with putting some money towards finding the truth. This created a national moral panic. Well, let's actually get the truth. I mean, even if the graves are found, you do know we bury people when they die. These schools were generally bad places. And they had a high death rate from things like typhus and all sorts of cholera. You know, you put a lot of people in close quarters together in places like this back then, it's going to be bad. That doesn't mean necessarily a genocide was taking place, but let's get to the truth. Let's find bodies. Let's try to find causes of death. And if there was something bad going on, I mean, everyone's dead from that time, more or less, but at least try to hold the historical record to account. But we haven't done that. We've pumped $12 million into just this, I can't say gravesite because we haven't even found the graves. They haven't tried to excavate a single body, not one body out of this. So this has gone from a certainty to a theory to a hoax to, as you put it now, a fraud. I'm going to apologize. I mean, I can't even pronounce French. I'm going to butcher this.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Templus te Suepamic
I
First
just call
Nation.
it the Kamloops Band.
Look,
Kamloops First Nation.
I mean, it's probably more respectful to call it Kamloops First Nation because yeah, that was my best. They've received $12 million from taxpayers, and it's been spent on marketing and communications. Marketing? What are they? What's being marketed? Marketing and communications. Salaries for trauma counselors. Administrative costs, speaking fees, and 25 consultants to provide advice to the chief and council. But not one excavation.
And it gets worse. Now they want another $40 million.
Yeah.
They want another $40 million. And this is all great journalism done by our colleagues at Blacklock Reporters going through access to information. They want another $40 million to fix up the school and to build a memorial there. $40 million.
Memorial to what? They haven't proven graves yet.
Exactly.
And that's where you have to kind of get right back to the very beginning of where this whole nightmare began. Because, I mean, they lowered the flag for 6 months. We were, the Pope came over to grovel in front of First Nations people. This all came out from oral testimony at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission from guys who said, as recently as in the 60s, babies were murdered and strung up and children were taken out in the night and forced to bury their compatriots in the apple orchard. That's what this search was all about. So possibly, if this happened, the perpetrators might still actually be alive. This is the 60s we're talking. They'd be pretty old, but they could still be kicking. Theoretically, then you want to get down, you want to find those victims, you want to start an investigation and catch them. And they did their GPR thing, found all the septic tiles, labeled them as bodies, and this all came to where it is now. The absurdity of it. All you need to do is dig a 6-foot bloody hole. You can hire a new Canadian to come in for $100 afternoon, sink a hole 6 feet, and confirm if there's a body there or not. That's all that had to be done. It could have been done within weeks. It could have been done for less than a few $1,000s. Part of what happened is things dragged out too, though. The Camsell Hospital in Edmonton did a GPR study based on oral history of a bunch of native bodies buried there, and they found nothing but construction rubble. 32 different spots they dug holes. And then in Manitoba, I believe it was a church basement where theoretically babies and children were buried in such. GPR found anomalies. They dug holes. They found nothing. That's where this is getting onto fraud. These guys bloody well know there's nothing down there now. But when we're talking people making millions of dollars out of the hoax, now it's fraud. Now they're robbing us on a hoax, and it's unforgivable.
You know what? Eventually, we might, if that 40 million goes through, I'm gonna have to do the math, but it's going to approach about $500,000 per suspected hole. I mean, those are expensive holes. Here's my idea. Everyone who says this is a matter-of-fact genocide and it's a mass graveyard, we'll pay you $1 million per hole to dig. But if there's nothing at the bottom of the hole, you got to jump in. And
they got strength in their theory. Hey, $1 million, I got nothing to lose.
That's a good deal. Pay me $1 million to dig a hole, and if there's what I don't think is at the bottom of that hole, I got to go in it.
And the Liberals are going so far as to take what Cory just said there and throw him in jail for denialism, residential school denialism.
There's an NDP bill with Liberal support.
Died on the order paper.
I guess it died with promulgation. But they want to criminalize even questioning this.
Yeah, and this money, according to the access to information stuff, it's in the pipeline. It's being approved, and that's could even be already out
good
there.
Good pun.
Good pun.
And aside from the money being spent and wasted, and I'm getting to the point of, as I said, I'm willing to call it fraud, and people almost criminally to the point of taking our money on something that didn't happen. But the damage that's being caused on an already socially troubled people, the people there who do believe this happened, the people who are believing these stories, the people who aren't looking deeper and realizing that this is a bunch of baloney, they're pretty bloody upset, and they should be. I mean, if you're going to believe that your ancestors were abused in the school and the children were forced to bury them, you're going to be outraged, and now you become more embittered, and you have even more issues.
Well, you're going to create potentially violent extremists, because if you believe that this is a genocidal country until extreme, actually, according to Trudeau, we're still a genocidal country. So, I mean, if that's the case, then we should drag Trudeau to the Hague right now and put him on crimes against humanity. But I mean, if people believe this stuff and you're from those communities, it'd be understandable. They could become violent extremists.
How many churches got burned?
They've become violent extremists already, some of them.
And it's unforgivable. This needs resolution, one way or another. Where you stand on it. And this is where there should actually be unity among people. You would think the people who believe their bodies down there should be supporting exhuming the bodies. They're spending $100 and some million to dig a garbage dump in Winnipeg to find a few Indigenous bodies, 2 actually, that may be there, but you won't dig a hole over here. The double standard too. It's sacred to recover these bodies and put them to proper rest if it's in Winnipeg, but it's sacred now that we can't disturb and move these bodies that allegedly are there in Kamloops. I don't get this, you guys. You'd think the families should be there saying we want to repatriate these murdered remains and bring them back to the reserve. But the problem they also have with spending $12 million so far is they haven't found anybody reported missing yet. That's the other thing. It's not like you had all these missing children. It's brutal. We're in the wrong racket.
It's just no political will.
We are in the wrong job. I'm going to get in the hole digging business.
Yeah.
Actually, the whole not
myth
not
theory
digging
is
holes
business.
Yeah, the anomaly business.
because the last thing they seem to want is to actually dig some holes.
No.
Okay, gentlemen, our parting shots. Let's start with you, Cory.
Sure. I mean, I've played around in a lot of partisan politics in the past and leadership races and things such as that. So we're watching this liberal debacle now, though. I mean, a little bit of sympathy has to be given. They were rushed into it. I mean, they should have seen it coming, but when you suddenly are splattered in due to a resignation and with such a hard timeline, they can't take 6 months. It's a mess. It's easy to sign up. Anybody can. Well, the first candidate out of the gates, that Chandra Arya, a 3-time Liberal member of Parliament.
Current member of Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, he's good enough for the Liberals as an MP and everything, but he was gaining some good steam. Of course, he uses the ethnic community and others. That's the way that works in that type of political game. Clearly, he was gaining some good momentum because anybody can sign up because it's free to sign up for a Liberal membership. It's worth exactly.
He wouldn't have won, but he could have gotten some votes in the pool.
Perhaps. I mean, it must have been something because they kicked him out of the race. They won't give a reason. Haven't given a reason. They've kicked him out of the race. I mean, already limited credibility with that entire party as it stands. How much credibility can you give to the leader now when you're disqualifying contenders who were good enough to be a member of Parliament, but now can't run for the leadership? So this race that was already bad is now just a joke.
Well, if he's not allowed to run for leader, maybe he shouldn't be allowed to run for an MP. He's clearly got something wrong with him. The Liberals should probably tell us.
Well, they won't say. The only other thing that they'll say is because some people have been saying it's because he doesn't speak French well enough. Well,
Or English.
well, that'll make some interesting discussions among new Canadians running for a political office. And those darn Liberals. Of course, they never have elected a woman yet either as a leader. So maybe they do have some issues.
Yeah. Dave, your parting shot.
I sat engrossed yesterday afternoon watching the first Trump press conference by his new press secretary,
Yes.
and holy cow, what a breath of fresh air! From the lying lesbian of the past 4 years, where she had to every answer she had to look up in her manual to this new lady who for an hour just asked questions and answered them off the top of her head. A breath of fresh air, and a shout out to them for allowing independent media back into the White House press room. So any independent media can apply to. We can apply. I'll be your Washington bureau chief.
Oh,
Go down there and we can sit there and ask questions. So
Probably have an easier time getting there than we do getting to the new Liberal leadership.
absolutely. So nice breath of fresh air there.
that is something. Yeah, we would probably have an easier time getting into the White House than a Mark Carney campaign event.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a prettier site.
Yes.
Well, this will maybe date it a bit, but I just want to bring note to the confirmation hearings of RFK, who is RFK Jr., who is before the Senate right now. I mean, there's been a lot of colorful confirmation hearings in the last week as Trump's cabinet picks go through the Senate. But this is one of the most interesting. I mean, he's got that kind of strained, gravelly voice. But it's funny watching the Democrats in that committee kind of twist themselves up because he comes from the royal lineage of the Democratic Party. There is no more royal family than the Kennedys, and watching them turn themselves inside and out. I'm even starting to sound a bit like RFK right now. But yeah, just keep watching these confirmation hearings. They are just hilarious to watch. The Democrats are thinking, are you trying to take away people's Big Macs? He's like, no, my boss. Everyone knows my boss loves Big Macs. He tried to make me eat one, for God's sakes. I'm just saying, if you want to eat a Big Mac, you should know what's in the Big Mac. And I think that'll be a breath of fresh air. Obviously, I don't want the United States federal government banning reasonable foods for people to eat. That'd be obviously massive overreach into people's lives. But something needs to be done because Lyft drivers are having real trouble right now fitting their customers.
RFK is not going to be happy with the new Burger King donut burger.
Oh yeah,
Nice burger with a donut instead of a piece of bread.
you can hear your arteries hardening as you look at it.
I mean, it sounds disgusting, but
Probably tastes delicious. So.
it doesn't sound good to me. But you might want to eat one just because of America.
The best RFK story is when he cut the head off a whale and tied it to the roof of his car. And then all the guts started oozing in through the windows, and his kids in the back seat screaming in horror.
I mean, what a motley crew he's gathered around.
We're in for so much fun this next couple of years, even if we go broke waiting.
Yeah, love Trump, hate him. Holy shit. What a show. What a show. Okay, speaking of, that's our show for today. Thank you very much for joining us on the pipeline. Remember, the Western Standard is one of an astonishingly small number of independent media left in Canada that refuse to take the federal government's big media bailout money. We rely on subscriptions from people like you. We want you to become a Western Standard member right now. Right now, while you're watching, don't do it later. Do it right now. Go to westernstandard.news. Click on membership or subscribe. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year. You'll get unlimited access to all Western Standard content. You get past that pesky paywall, and you'll be supporting one of the last non-government funded media outlets left in Canada. Thank you very much for joining us today, and God bless.